right, recording will start soon. I think recording has started. Awesome. So this is BOLT12 UX Jam Session number 4, I think, or maybe it's number 5 actually. But regardless, here we are to talk about BOLT12 and how we might roll it out. I've got some stuff that I've been dabbling with in Figma that I can share. Before I start diving into any of that, like maybe Steve, do you have any like news updates or anything you wanted to share, or do you just want me to dive right in?
No, I'll give a few updates, just the things I've been thinking about or doing or not doing. I forget if I shared this in the last design jam or not, but I'm working on a post that just sort of describes BOLT12 to a broader set of people. I actually think there's been relatively poor communication about BOLT12 to the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I think a lot of people's impression is just that it's, something Rusty cooked up 3-4 years ago, and CLN kind of has it, and no one else does. And now there's LNURL, and there's just, and then like gets into all these debates about LNURL versus BOLT12, and there's not really a great, like bolt12.org is outdated. It hasn't really been updated for years. So anyway, I'm working on a post that helps describe like BOLT11. Obviously, it's like the current standard. It's ubiquitous, but it has drawbacks. And then LNURL has certain improves certain things on that and enables new use cases, which is why people are excited about it. But it has drawbacks. And then how BOLT12 and async payments address those. Steven, I know you've seen it. Ideally, we spruce up my text with some pretty pictures, UI mocks, etc., which might make it more consumable. But yeah, so I'd like to get that. I haven't worked on it for the last 2 weeks, but I'd like to get back to that. Maybe I'll be bugging you, Steven, to help with that, and then hopefully we can get that published soon. One other update, I think BTC Pay could be a really interesting. I've been thinking about like the deployment of BOLT12 and async payments, and how do we get it adopted? It has such strong interoperability and network effects, so how do we overcome that? And I mean, I have a variety of thoughts there, but one in particular, I think BTC Pay could be really important. Both, I think BOLT12 and async payments could be really important for BTC Pay, but then BTC Pay, if it supported them, could be really helpful to get other wallets to support. The reason being, BTC Pay is all about non-custodial, no KYC, self-sovereign, right? And it's a great solution for on-chain Bitcoin, but it is not yet a great solution with Lightning. And there is no mobile BTC Pay solution. So there's room for improvement for non-custodial Lightning on BTC Pay. And then also there's a whole set of merchants globally who only have a mobile phone. And they don't have a server, they don't run a Raspberry Pi, but they want self-sovereignty. So as that becomes more technically feasible, and BOLT12 and async payments are part of that solution, I think it could be really important for that project in particular, and that could help drive adoption. So I'm engaging with BTC Pay on that to see what they think, and maybe cook up a project plan there.
That would be really cool, I think. My experience with BTC Pay and Lightning has actually been pretty good thus far, just because I usually have it connected to a Lightning node, and so the website just kind of fetches BOLT11 invoices for me. But having said that, I see like if you had like a mobile version of BTC Pay, like one that was just like a native like BTC Pay app that could like run on your phone and kind of be its own Lightning node, that could be pretty exciting.
Quick question before we get to Sue up on that. You said you have a good experience. Are you running your own Lightning node?
Yes.
Right. And are you managing your own liquidity?
Yes, but having said that, I don't get enough, volume, sales volume to where I'm constantly having to worry about it. Yeah.
So I think it's unrealistic for the vast majority of merchants that they're going to run their own Lightning node and manage their own liquidity 24/7 if they actually do it decent number of payments. That's just like completely unrealistic. So I think LSPs come into play here, and just better non-custodial solution.
Yeah, agree.
So
Yeah, I just want to say that BTC Pay server, although it's a great solution for being self-sovereign, being able to run your own payment processor, right? But I do feel that it is still technically a lift to for it to have a really wide adoption. I actually think that BOLT12 actually solves, like for instance, if you don't want to run a tip jar, actually having your own node and then creating a BOLT12 offer is actually a much simpler way for you to get donations rather than running a BTC Pay server, which can actually be very technically difficult and on a big lift compared to just running an Lightning node. So I think that rather provide a simpler solution for donation type use cases.
yeah, I think it's a really good point. And I think it complements what I said too. I mean, I think a BTC Pay mobile app that worked would be amazing, but there's also and that would tap into a whole new segment of merchants. But then what you said taps into an even broader set of people receiving money, who might not even call themselves or think of themselves as merchants. Like if you're just a freelancer or a developer or whatever, and you're accepting, you have tip jar donations or whatever, then what you said is a very simple and great solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people get onboarded to BTC Pay just because, like there's always the activist use case where they're needing to accept donations with it. And, a lot of times they probably didn't want to have to, run a node or anything just to be able to accept donations over the internet. So it'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to help out with the images on the blog post. Maybe some of what I've been working on here can be useful for that, Steve. And but yeah, just bug me about it. I'd love to help you get that online soon.
Thank you.
Cool. I'm gonna share some of like what I've been mulling over since the last and since our last call. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to chat about before we move into that.
I just want to make one more point from the UX use cases. I just want to make sure that we cover a payer use cases as well. I think we've been covering a payee use case so far. So we should try to cover a payer experience as well, which can have some nuances, which I would like to cover today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Why don't I'll show you kind of, I've been thinking a little bit about the payer and why don't you let me know where you think I've got some blind spots where I'm missing some stuff. I think, like as a refresher for anyone who missed, like last week we were looking at these kind of user journeys here for just these kind of characters who each need to use Bitcoin for a different reason, and they're all setting up offers on their phone. So we're going through just kind of different use cases between like DCAing from an exchange to a Lightning wallet, Nostr tips, etc. Start looking more into the how we might actually roll that out, like how we present the QR code in the interface or whatever payment method. I think one like conversation thread towards the end of the last call that really stuck out to me is just this idea that maybe BOLT12 isn't really that useful without async payments. Like it's useful in that, like if you have a node running all the time, and I guess it saves you from having to generate invoices, but we don't really get to that like sweet spot where we have a fully self-sovereign mobile Lightning wallet that can just make a BOLT12 offer and give it to anybody and accept payments anytime. We just don't get there without async payments, right? So I started to think about it in my mind of like, okay, maybe there's like 3 phases to this in the way we look at it. So like, we skip ahead a couple months here. Eclair has support, LDK has support, and then see whether it's LND daemon or core Lightning. But see who gets there first. But we have more than one Lightning implementation in the future that accepts offers. So then what we can do is, so the nodes have support. So then the application layer stuff can start adding support. So like a wallet that uses LND, like the mobile light version of LND or whatever, could experiment with adding the LND daemon, or a wallet built with LDK could, start adding the ability to support BOLT12. What I'm proposing is that I think phase 1 is kind of like a quiet rollout of BOLT12. I mean, every wallet can do what they want, but if it were my wallet, this is how I'd say do it. You quietly roll out BOLT12. So like kind of like on the daily spending wallet in the design guide, we have something that looks like this. You go to the home screen of the app here. You can, request or pay. So you type in, okay, I want to pay €5. So I'm going to pay, and it gives you this payment request. And by default, it gives you a BIP21 URI with a BOLT11 and an on-chain, all in one there. At the bottom here, for kind of the advanced users or people in awkward situations, there are these little, there's a way that they can kind of swipe over and get another QR code. So if you swipe over to the other dot, you get a Lightning invoice. If you swap over to the other one, you get an on-chain invoice. That is actually a dot error. That's what we call it in the industry, a dot error. So yeah, you got 3 different options, but like the primary one solves most people's use cases. I'm saying keep that the same. Like you can make this phone scan a BOLT12 offer without announcing it to the user and making a big deal about it and confusing them. Just add in scan support just so that the wallet can start doing that. And so not only scan support, but also the ability to actually pay that offer. But you don't have to make the phone start generating offers. That can be a quiet feature. Now, what you can do is for the people who are kind of in the know, the developers, the power users that like to experiment, can have maybe in the settings menu, I added this like developers option down here, and you go into the developers option and it says enable BOLT12 offers. Adds a BOLT12 offer to the options when generating a payment request. So I tick this little box on, and then when I go to generate my payment request, I now have a 4th dot. And if I'm one of these advanced power users, I can swipe all the way to the right. It kind of lets me know, exclamation point, offers are experimental. The person you share this with might not be able to scan it. So like my thinking here is that like there's this period where not everybody, so I say, can it be advanced instead of developers? Yeah, absolutely. Something along those lines, like advanced. Yeah, that would make sense too. So don't pretend like, this is going to work for everybody. So just roll out scanning and sending and let the generating offers and receiving them be kind of a under the hood feature who people like want to experiment with that stuff. And then we start thinking a couple more months ahead into the future. And then we start thinking about like many, many months after that, hopefully we have something that looks like a finalized async payment spec, and at least 2 node implementations have adopted this. And maybe some people are experimenting with building LSPs or something, I don't know, but at least if we have a spec that works. So then we can't quite say at this moment that anyone can pay you while your phone is in your pocket. Like that's not true yet, because like we've just rolled out async payments, not everyone supports it. But similar to the above example, how I can scan and send to an offer without needing to, expose the user to it, I can also make an async payment without having to expose the user to it. So like, I'm still a little unclear at the moment on exactly like how nodes are going to like signal to each other that they support async payments. I think it's like a TLV thing last time I read. Oh, you got a hand raised, Steve?
Yeah, well, I both can answer that question, but also have a comment, but I can save it to the end if you want me to. But for signaling async payments, that there'll just be a flag in a BOLT12 offer, which says, yes or no, whether it supports it or not. And
Perfect.
Yeah. And then do you want me to hold my comment or?
Oh yeah, go. No, you can go ahead right now.
I mean, it's kind of a broad comment about async payments, and I forget how much in the last design jam, I might have even been pushing for like, hey, we kind of need async payments with BOLT12. And I forget if I said that or not, or if you arrived at that independently, but
I arrived at it independently, yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, I kind of feel that way, but I've spoken with other folks too, and I don't think it's that extreme. So for example, I mean, of course, the problem without async payments is if you have a non-custodial mobile wallet, receiving is not guaranteed because the OS might not run your mobile app in the background to receive the payment. And I haven't seen any hard concrete data on how successful current apps are. I know that the Phoenix app just took advantage of some of the latest iOS APIs, and some people feel like it could be pretty good, like maybe 95% of the time, 98, 99% of the time receiving payments. And that is based off of if anyone's used Signal before on an iPhone, you know that when you get a notification from Signal and look at the notification, most of the time it shows you a little text snippet in that notification, but sometimes it doesn't. And the sometimes it doesn't is when Signal wasn't allowed access to the CPU in the background to fetch that text snippet. And gut feeling is that's something like 1% of the time, 2% of the time, maybe 5% of the time. And if that's a good proxy for payment success, then maybe that's what payment success would be on like a Phoenix app today. I'd love to see concrete data on that. But let's say it is like 98 or 99%, then that's arguably good enough. It's better than having no solution for mobile, non-custodial mobile wallets today. A similar point or another point regarding this issue, some people have been experimenting with LNURL for non-custodial wallets, where like I think Blixt was experimenting with this, where you'd have a mobile wallet, it's non-custodial, but for any payments being received via LNURL, while that wallet is offline or the user doesn't open it up, basically a third-party server would be holding your payments. So it's temporarily custodial, and for inbound payments. There's also the potential for theft with an LNURL server, because they could issue. They could either steal the inbound payments, or they could issue an invoice that isn't the end user's wallet. So it has those drawbacks, but that's being experimented with. And it would suffer the same offline receive issues that BOLT12 would. So anyway, I would argue that we should have a framework with a phase where there's BOLT12, it broadens in adoption, and it's not contingent on async payments, even though obviously my hope is that async payments follows very quickly behind.
Yeah, that sounds fair. I need to try using Phoenix more, honestly. I recently, I think about a couple of weeks ago, I tried using it, and I was actually very surprised because I guess I had like switched out of the app or something like that and gone to another app while I was waiting for somebody to pay me, just kind of absentmindedly. And then like I got an iOS push notification that popped up, and it let me tap to go, and it like opened Phoenix and then received the payment. And it was like really, it was kind of janky, because then Phoenix told me that the payment failed, but then it told me that it succeeded. So ultimately it succeeded. So it might be that Phoenix's like iOS API thing is actually kind of good enough for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was skeptical, and I challenged someone to send me a bunch of payments to Phoenix, and I killed the app on my phone and turned, I wasn't using my phone, and it received every payment that was sent to me.
Nice.
I think Ben has had his hand raised first.
Oh, I was just saying, I think I was talking to Carmen about this the other day, and I know he was trying to come up with some solution. I think it was like based on kind of like the Nostr payment issues, where a user could share a subset of these like LN auth payments, and an intermediary node would accept it on their behalf with the same payment hash that they passed on. So it would be like essentially non-custodial and not able to steal funds. I'm not as plugged into exactly how this all works.
I talked to Ben about that. And confirmed that there's still the risk that the third party can issue invoices that could be someone else's invoices, and it's temporarily custodial. So I think it has the same issues that Blix would have. They're just fundamental, unless you're running your own LNURL server on your phone, which is not practical.
Still some interesting solutions, but yeah, good point.
So have you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, from an end user perspective, do we really need to bake in anything into our experience or a journey for async payment?
I don't really think. Do we need anything? What do you mean?
Yeah, but I mean, from an end user perspective, it should really not matter, right? Whether it's a live payment or happening async.
I agree.
Right. So I'm just
Yeah,
curious, like, are you thinking about like creating any setting which the user will select to decide that I can receive async payments? If you
No.
are, yeah, okay.
Oh, I'm not proposing any setting or anything like that. These are just, I mean, these are just some basic payment flows. I've modified these, ever so slightly in various places, but I mean, this is basically just the kind of send flow from the daily spending wallet of the guide. And I mean, like really, probably the most there's two things in here unique to async payments. These I actually did months ago. I was just bringing them back in here and kind of updating them based on new information. But it very well could be that we end up in a situation where it can't. I think I had this screen back when we were still trying to figure out all the different QR code types and all that. So maybe ignore that. But we need a good error message in the situation where a particular payment format's not supported. The only other real, main changes we have to think about are, you know, letting them know when, if it is not an async payment and it, transaction, like it doesn't support the async flag in the offer, then, or there is no async flag in the offer, then, and the node is offline, then we have to let them know the transaction couldn't be completed. But then there's also this kind of like intermediate period where the payment would be sent, but it's not done yet, because like what's really happening is it's at the LSP's node, and it's like waiting to be, they're kind of waiting for the user to come back online. So kind of like being able to differentiate in the UI between like, okay, the payment is sent, but it hasn't really been confirmed yet, right? Steve.
Yeah, well, just to reiterate, I agree with what Suhab said. I don't think anything about async payments needs to be in the UI, or users don't even need to know that detail. And then in terms of like payments not completing, that regardless of BOLT12 or async payments or any of this stuff, I mean, that's already an issue with Lightning today. You can have payments that don't complete for a variety of reasons. So every wallet should have some kind of good user experience explain the payment failed. Now, and then there's some discussion at the Lightning protocol level of like providing better information to a wallet, to a sending wallet, like why did it fail? And then that would, there's trade-offs to doing that because it can hurt privacy. But if that improves, then there'd be more information available. And then the last point here, the fact that payments might not be instant. But they might be delayed. Like the recipient might not receive it for a period of time. That also is already true today, independent of async payments. And like if you use, I mean, Cash App, deals with that, but like I forget the exact way that they deal with it. Something like if it doesn't complete, within a few seconds or 5 seconds or something like that, then it says like pending, or you get like a push notification saying like pending or something like that. I forget the exact UX treatment, but wallets already have to deal with that today. The interesting UX discussion to be had here with async payments is how do we communicate to both the sender and receiver? How do we communicate to both, and like do we even say it's pending? Because to the end user, like if I pay Steven and as soon as Steven opens his wallet, like it should pretty much instantly show the payment I sent him, even if it was sitting in a mailbox for like 8 hours or even 3 days in an LSP mailbox. When Steven opens the app, he should that payment then should like sort of instantly complete within a second or two. So you should see it right away.
Yep.
So to your perception is that it was instant or that it was already delivered. You're not like waiting around for it. So, I wonder if we even want to communicate to me, the sender, that it's pending or not. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's a good discussion to be had, I think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to be absolutely clear, I mean, I think we're all in agreement here. I'm not trying to propose that we go talking about this, technical gibberish in front of users. I'd be the last one to propose that. Yeah, this was just strictly here, just like, a little notification on like payment status. That's all. So very similar to what you're talking about with like Cash App, just saying pending. Similar kind of idea. I think to the receiver, yeah, it should just be absolutely instant. To the sender, I don't know. You could get away with just payment sent, and I mean, one thing you could do is just you could make it say payment confirmed. Like, I kind of tend to err more on the side of like, let's be honest without being uh, overly complicated. So like here, it's like, okay, payments, like this one's a better one to look at, like payment sent. That's an honest answer. The payment was sent. This is an honest answer. Now the payment is confirmed. You might make the argument though that maybe you just skip this step and maybe you just go straight to saying payment sent. And then like if the payment does get returned, then you just bring up a notification, oh, your payment was returned, that kind of thing. But no, I mean, in agreement, we shouldn't be talking about, yeah.
I agree with that. Just one more technical detail so everyone's aware. It is possible with async payments for it to time out because there's still an HTLC involved and there's a timeout involved. Now, with the way that async payments is designed, it's certainly possible to choose a very long window of time for that timeout, like weeks or even months or something. That'll need to be, well, that can be a per wallet decision. But even if 3 months is chosen, it's still possible that the recipient doesn't receive that within 3 months and it could fail. So we should, even if that's rare, it needs to be accounted for in the design.
We're getting way off the BOLT12 topic here, but like something just occurred to me with that I might think about for later of like, if your LSP tries to do something with your channel in the background, like, like the wallet tries to do like I don't know, open a new channel or something like that. And like, if something needs to happen to that channel, but there's like a payment, like the LSP is holding on to that hasn't been claimed by the recipient yet, that could be interesting. That's probably more of a technical thing for the LSP to figure out though, like, channel splicing or something like that could maybe fix that in the future.
Well, the good news, there's a lot of discussion with Lightning Protocol does right now around both splicing, LSP spec for JIT, like zero conflict JIT channels, and BOLT12 and async payments. So the good news is that the right people are discussing and thinking that how all those technologies interrelate. And it is complicated, but it seems to be on the right track.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so I mean, this thing right here, just steers back to our kind of like my kind of phase idea. Like so maybe that's, maybe that's too harsh of me to say, well, it's not broadly useful without saying async. To your point, Steve, maybe we could come up with other options like working with these new iOS APIs and all that. So that would certainly be awesome. But I still kind of identify in that like a phase where like, okay, we have the wallets, they're supporting BOLT12. And like, I do kind of think a quieter rollout first is safer. Like let's not make it like the default format, like, on day one for a wallet. Let's wait until like, we have some proof that there's like other wallets out there that are supporting this and all of that before we like bring it front and center in the interface, and like make that like the default payment request. That would be my idea.
The only thing, I generally agree with that. Maybe the only exception though, let's say I have a wallet, non-custodial mobile wallet, and I want to receive, I want to do a tip jar, donations. I basically want the reusable feature of BOLT12. If there's a feature in my mean, if the way it's exposed to me in my app is like tip jar or something like that, then I think it's, I mean, then it would have to be, and then you can't use Bolt 11, right? It's not even an option. So then I think making Bolt 12 the default would be fine for that type of feature. I do agree that even if it were the default, if that's the user flow, like I'm going to use tip jar and then you show the Bolt 12, you still need to communicate to the user that we're in an early phase of adoption, kind of like you have in that, last UI mock, just warning users that there might be quite a few people trying to pay that it will fail. So, I mean, I agree. You need to be honest there with that, but I could imagine defaulting to Bolt 12 for specific features where it uniquely enables it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's like if you're going to make a tip jar app, you got to make sure that you have the other piece to that figured out. Like if you're going to call it a tip jar app and give it Bolt 12 offers, then I guess you have to, try and jerry rig something so that, iOS will let it use some CPU. But assuming they do that, then yeah, why not? That could be good. Yeah, so that's what I have for this week. I haven't, I mean, that's most of my latest progress since the last time we spoke. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm open. I'm willing to take the conversation wherever we want to go now.
I think maybe Suhab, could you speak about the payer?
Yeah, there's one scenario that I wanted to cover. If I am actually paying the BOLT12 offer, and there can be two scenarios. Either, let's say, I make to fail the payment because, let's say, I don't have balance in my channel, right? That's one scenario. Or some other technical reason because of which the payment didn't go through right away. Or the payment went through, and I actually want to save this offer so that I can pay the same person or the same thing again in the future, like some sort of a bookmarking feature, because the information in BOLT12 offer is static information, so it can be saved for future references, right? So I just want to make sure that I just want to float this idea that if a payer is paying and the payment is successful, do you want to give an option to the user that do you want to save this for a future payment, or if payment didn't go through, do you want to save this to retry again in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have in the design guide this page that Christoph made about contacts, and I'm trying to think. It would probably just be better if I go directly there, but I don't see why we couldn't map the same design pattern onto offers. He may already have a page in here about adding a contact. So like this is like adding a contact from the beginning and like associating some kind of address with it. But then contact editing, importing an address. Yeah. So I mean that's one way. Let's see, sending from the home screen, contact, adding a contact. Yeah. So this whole like deal right here. So it's like oh no, that's different. That's different. Adding a contact to a completed payment. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, so the idea, it's like, okay, I'm in my transaction activity here. Um, I click on some payment in there that doesn't have a person's face on it. And it's like you sent, 5 million sats to this node. Then I could tap the contact and then slides up with this whole thing, shows me a list of people, and I can assign that, strange, ugly looking identifier to an actual contact I have. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do that from the completed payment.
Yeah, like in my initial experimental journey, like while I was playing with RTL, we have actually given an option for the user to bookmark offers for future references and attach small metadata so that he
Nice.
can identify what it is for, whatever it was for.
That's great. Yeah, I was just double checking to see if there was like anything kind of already in the UI kit that would already satisfy that before I go and just build it. Add contact, choose a save contact, assign contact to an outgoing payment request. Yeah, it's kind of like this, but what we really want to do is we want to have it on the completed payment screen, right? That's what would make the most sense there.
Yeah, definitely. There can be a failure scenario where you know that you have failed because, let's say, you don't have liquidity, right? And we know that the user wanted to pay but failed because of some reason, and might want to refer to it once they have enabled themselves. Let's say they have their channel filled up or whatever, right? So that can be one more scenario. Or flow is complicated, especially in case of an error scenario. But that's also where we can kind of think about this.
Got a nice little offer right here. I'm just going to go ahead and build it. Yeah. Which type 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Then take that out. And then what we really need to do is just have some kind of button here or something. It's like, create contact or something like that. Yeah, I don't know, something like this, just to where, like, if user sends to, and this would apply not just to offers. I mean, this could easily apply to an on-chain address or node ID or whatever also, but I think offer would be the more common use case. Yeah, they send to an offer. It's just, if they're just sending to plain text or whatever, then the UI gives them the option after the payment's completed to create a contact or add it to an existing contact. So if I add it to an existing contact, then it could bring up a contact screen. I could associate it with somebody that's already in there. And I think if an app wanted to go real crazy with this, they could integrate it with the phone's contacts or whatever, and be able to ask for permission to view the person's iOS contacts. That way you can just associate it with names that you already have in your address book and all that. Cool. So any other comments, questions on anything? Then I'm just going to keep designing then. I think
maybe
yeah.
One thought, like it's something that helps me before keep designing is like have the journey map, like just kind of the customer journey and the moments of truth, like what are the action, the thoughts, the feeling, the thread, the touch points. Like personally, it helped me before to keep designing, but it's a personal decision. I can share with you like my framework, but personally, like I feel like if I have all this information mapped out, it's easy to sometimes to share that with developers, because that they can understand what is happening in the user's mind. Then basically is action, thoughts, feeling, thread, touch points, and then just like the different stage, basically from awareness to adoption, depending of the product you are doing. I can share in the Slack. I can.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I'm thinking next I need to, like obviously want to get this blog post kind of outfitted with some graphics and all of that. And then I'm trying to just think about another productive place to push this after that. Some of these things I could start looking at in terms of, updating content in the guide. In terms of some of what we've been discussing on these calls, I think another good place to take this would be maybe to take a crack at the BOLT12.org.
Yeah, BOLT12.org definitely needs some love.
Yeah, I think a bolt12.org, we could, inputs into what it should be, like V2 of what it should be. One would be this post that I'm creating with a few others. Two would be like the all the Figma work that Steven's doing. I still think we want to retain a lot of the stuff on bolt12.org, but sort of off in a engineers corner or technical details corner of the page. And then I think there needs to be a treatment around adoption and deployment, adoption paths. That's what I would imagine. This like who are our audiences here? Like there's one audience which is builders, like what wallet and application builders. I think that's definitely an audience.
That would be my go-to.
Arguably the primary audience. But I think a secondary and important audience is just the broader Bitcoin ecosystem, so that people just understand why there's others who feel strongly about BOLT12 and are working. Why are so many people working on it? And just simply communicating that people are working on it, and that it is coming, and just sort of getting accurate information out there about BOLT12 to the broader Bitcoin ecosystem. I think could help a lot, so we can avoid what I would characterize as kind of silly tribal fights between LNURL and BOLT12 advocates. Oftentimes it's due to everyone involved in those discussions not having all the information. So they're missing some information. So having a great, accurate, up-to-date resource site so that everyone in the space can level up their understanding would be really positive.
Atosha, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I feel like all this fighting is also because sometimes one person is in one's perspective that they cannot see the other person perspective. And I would like to suggest to have in the BOLT12 information like the values. Like what is important to understand the BOLT12 versus lining addresses is lining addresses don't inherit the same virtues and the same capabilities that the Bitcoin that is centralized, that is censorship resistant. It has single point of failures. I think that part is totally missing, and I'm happy to write the sentences. But I think, and this is my hypothesis, BOLT12 solve these problems in one way or another because it's more censorship resistant. And I think it's important because it has Bitcoin values and decentralization values.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share my early draft document with you because it's consistent with what you just said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read your mind then.
Yeah, I think I had at least commented on some stuff. Overview of BOLT12 and how it can improve the UX of Bitcoin for Lightning. How to add BOLT12 support to your product. UX UI guidance. So some of the kind of Figma stuff we've been working on. I think tracking products and services to support it as we, actually once Eclair launches and other nodes follow suit, then we need to be able to keep track of, which support it just for interoperability. And then, yeah, keep Rusty's existing content somewhere on the site. It's like the protocol dev section of the site. That's the way I think about it. Cool. So that's a good place. That's a good next thing we can move on to then. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, like I said, my next action item will probably just be the images for the blog post and all that. So we can connect about that offline, Steve. Yeah, anything else anybody wants to chat about while we're all here? Cool. Well, that being the case, if there's no further questions or comments, then I'll go ahead and stop it here. And I'll just stop the recording. And there should be another one on the Bitcoin Design calendar. So I usually do these every other Friday. So if you want to see the next one, just check out the one, check out that calendar. And that is it.